Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, Mayor Lightfoot's recently passed budget is being called the city's most progressive spending plan ever. We'll speak with 3 alder people about what's in it and whether it does enough for Chicago's communities of color. Vaccine hesitancy is still a big issue in Black neighborhoods. What's being done to get people on board as we approach a vaccine rollout for kids? Mobility equity activist Obi Reed gives the last word on how he believes transportation infrastructure can lead to a safer Chicago.
I love how when it's placed on my shoulder, it's close to my heart.
And this young violinist is just one of dozens receiving thousands in grant money to pursue their careers. She shares her passion for music and how she plans to pay it forward. First off tonight, this week, City Council approved Mayor Lori Lightfoot's $16.7 billion budget, which includes several investments proposed and backed by progressives. Some of the key components include a universal basic income pilot program that would give $500 a month to 5,000 low-income families for a year, $6.3 million to hire 29 employees at the city's public mental health clinics, $5 million to expand efforts to renovate single-room occupancy hotels to help prevent homelessness, plus investments in affordable housing, violence prevention, and jobs programs. Joining us now with their take are 5th Ward Alderman Leslie Hairston, 28th Ward Alderman Jason Irvin, and 17th Ward Alderman David Moore. Alderman, thanks to all of you for joining us. So, Alderman Hairston, let's start with you, please. You voted in favor of this 2022 budget, recovery budget. Why did you vote in favor?
Well, I think it has a lot of what people have been asking for. We started this process months ago when the mayor came to the different communities and brought the community members in. I actually sat at the table with community members and they told us what they wanted. They did a mock budget and they got to experience, the difficulties in making decisions when you have a limited amount of dollars. And so, I think a lot of people would agree one of the biggest issues facing Chicago is the violence. And we take a big chunk of money and direct it towards violence prevention, violence intervention, to address some of these needs. Now, this is something that's not just going to be a one-time deal. It is something that's going to have to continue, but it begins to redress the wrongs that have plagued the South and West Sides for a long time.
And Alderman Moore, you voted against the budget. What's your criticism of it?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying I agree with what Alderman Leslie Hairston is saying, but for me, what was important, it was broad, and although you want to be trusting of the administration, you want more, from me, as much more detail I can get in terms of where this money is going in the community. And if you can't get a full scope of it, because sometimes that is a challenge, you want something to be able to touch and say to your community, this is what I'm bringing back to the community, not just such in a broad sense. And you can't get that on every dollar that she has, that the mayor has in this budget, but you have to be able to point to something. If I'm not able to point to something, then what I'm doing is I'm just flying blindly and saying, hey, I'm going to trust you. One of the things that happened last year, which was a very tough budget, and we had good conversations, we were able to get some commitments from the administration saying, in terms of infrastructure, this is going to be done, that's going to be done. And I was able to point last year to 79th and Halsted, to Loomis. So I was able to point to those things.
And it sounds like you feel like you're not able to do that this year, but you're also a member of the Progressive Caucus, which was instrumental in getting some of the larger investments, like the increase in mental health funding and the homelessness prevention. Several of your fellow aldermen praised the effort during Wednesday's City Council meeting. Let's take a listen to some of that.
What we see reflected in this year's budget is a result of tense but productive negotiations with the Lightfoot administration. Once again, as we did last year, the Black and Latino caucuses, led by the Progressive Caucus, built a coalition together to come to the table. Our collective vision was clear. The funds provided by the federal government needed to be invested in the people of Chicago.
This is probably the strongest budget in my short time that we've seen in Chicago City Council, in meeting the needs of our residents, in making sure that our working families, our children, our elders are taken care of.
So that's Alderman Andre Vasquez and Alderperson Maria Haddon speaking there. Alderman Moore, before we move on to Alderman Irvin, do you think this budget plan does enough to address inequities in Chicago?
I think on a large scale, in terms of what the mayor put out, I think it does. But again, if my community was to ask me specifics, and I know I can't get specifics on everything, I have to be able to say at least A, B, and C, even if I can't get all the way to Z.
Okay. Alderman Irvin, during Wednesday's City Council meeting, you said this budget is not perfect, but still encouraged everyone to vote for it. Let's take a listen to that.
There's a lot of choice here. There are a lot of options here. There are a lot of things that you can work with here. Now, I don't agree with everything in the budget, and people know where I stand on certain issues, but we cannot allow one piece or even two pieces to stop moving the balance of the program forward.
Jason Irvin, I know the $500 a month for low-income families, that component of the budget was a major sticking point for you. Is that some of what you were referring to when you're speaking there?
Yes, it was. That still, sticks to my craw a bit. I think those dollars need to be directed towards violence prevention, working with our young people to give them stipends, to do job training, educational programs, do counseling, versus handing out checks on a monthly basis for needs that we address in other areas of the
budget. Alderman Harrison, what's your take on these payments?
Well, I think, you give people a hand up, a helping hand, especially during these pandemic times. It might be somebody that needs daycare assistance. It might be, and that's what we're trying to get at with this. I know that at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, a lot of people try to figure out, okay, what gets paid, what doesn't get paid. And so to provide this additional income allows them to at least take a little bit of stress off and try to get some things done that they need to get done. And I think it's much needed.
So let's talk a little bit about the funding for mental health clinics. Alderman Moore, why was that something that's important to progressives in particular?
I think that was important to progressives because it seems like when we invest money into mental health, then the increase of the number of people comes to those clinics. And the administration was able to show that. So the more we invest in mental health, then the more people are using those services. When we don't invest in them, then less people use those services. And that's why that was important to the Progressive Caucus.
Alderman Jason Irvin, what do you think? Will this budget improve equity? Will it help communities that are often overlooked and underserved?
Most definitely. I think with everything that's on the table here, when we talk about affordable housing, we talk about childcare, we talk about violence prevention, some of the various needs that communities have talked about, not just Black communities, but all over the city of Chicago. Our number one concern is to work with our young people to help them make better choices as relates to the activities in which they engage in. And I think that this budget does do a great job of getting there. I just wish we had that extra $35, $40 million to get stipends to people that actually are going to do something in return for those dollars. And again, I don't disagree with what my colleague has stated as relates to people need help. Yes, people need help. But I think that when we find out 5,000 people over the city of Chicago versus helping a very concentrated group of individuals that are driving a lot of the challenges our city face, if I have to weigh those two things, I want to help the most challenged so that they can get their lives back on the right track.
Finally, Alderman Harrison, you know, the Progressive Caucus says it's dedicated to creating a more just and equal Chicago. Do you think this budget gets you there?
Well, it doesn't get you all the way there. I mean, that is a process. The city didn't get to this point overnight. We're not going to get out of this overnight. But what it does do is address some of the root causes that we face in the city of Chicago. And it's not just with the violence, but it's the interaction and the relationship between the Black and brown communities and the police department. And, you know, so to the extent that we can deal with treatment and getting needed services in the communities that we serve, yes, it does move the needle ahead. And this is a march. This is a march.
All right, a long week for the three of you, Alderman David Moore, Jason Irvin, and Leslie Harrison. Thanks to all of you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And to get the full breakdown of the 2022 budget plan, you can head to our website. That's WTTW.com/news. Chicago officials say they are ready to roll out a coronavirus vaccine for kids ages 5 to 11 now that one has been approved by the FDA under emergency use. The city's top doctor says shots could be going into young arms any day now.
We may have vaccines for children 5 to 11, possibly as soon as next week, and we have been planning for months around this.
Now, this comes on the backdrop of a new survey from the Kaiser Family Foundation, which found most parents are either on the fence or against the vaccine for their child. While 27% say they are eager to let their child get the shot, 1/3 said they'll wait and see, and 31% said they will definitely not let their child get vaccinated against COVID-19. Meanwhile, Black Chicagoans are still being vaccinated at lower rates, despite the vaccine being widely available. The Chicago Department of Public Health says just 44% of Black Chicagoans are fully vaccinated. That's compared with nearly 66% of Asian Americans and about 63% of whites. So joining us now to discuss vaccine expansion for kids and vaccine hesitancy among Black Chicagoans are Dr. Whitney Lynn, a family medicine physician at Cook County Health, Beth Tedesse with the Chicago Department of Public Health, and community activist and vaccine ambassador Wallace Gator Bradley. Thanks to all three of you for joining us. Dr. Lynn, let's start with you, please. Tell us a little bit about what we know about the efficacy of these vaccines in children.
Yes, so, you know, with the efficacy, what we're seeing with the new Pfizer data is that over 90% of this vaccine is efficacious at working and keeping our children safe. And so, you know, our goal is to get our children out and get our parents out to get everyone vaccinated.
And you, like me, you've got two young boys. How did you arrive at your decision on whether or not to have them vaccinated?
I came to that decision actually last year. And part of the reason is because with everything going on, being remote was very difficult on my children, especially who's now 7-year-old. When he was in kindergarten, it took him mentally and socially, it really hurt him. And so I was seeing that we have to get vaccinated to get normal. And I recently got a call. My kid is actually now in quarantine because last week I got a phone call saying my kid was COVID positive. And both of my children were COVID positive. And it was hard. It was very hard for me to take. And it's hard as a physician and as a mom to get everyone to trust us and to get vaccinated. And I can tell you that the vaccine works because my husband and I were negative. And my mother, who's 70 years old, was also negative. And so that lets me know, and it should let everyone else know, that the vaccine works and it keeps us safe.
I'm sorry to hear about the diagnoses for your children. I'm sure it's a scary time and obviously very personal for you. Wallace, or Gator, excuse me, tell us about the work that you've been doing to get people vaccinated, especially in Black and brown communities.
You know, in our community, it's very important that African Americans get vaccinated. And I'm glad that Pfizer has made it where the children can now get vaccinated. And I'm vaccinated, my daughter vaccinated, my granddaughter vaccinated, and now by the grace of God, we can get my great grandson vaccinated. He's 13 years old. So right after I get through doing this interview, I'm going to call her to make sure that he is vaccinated, and I'm going to go with him if he hasn't went to get vaccinated. Because we can't play with this. This is serious.
It is. Gator, I was just going to ask you, what are you hearing from people who say that they are hesitant, and what do you say, how do you inform them? What do you tell them?
Well, what I do is something that I use culturally. In the 70s, we always said, listen to the beating drums, but fast forward, we in 2021. And I tell them, because of social media, the telephone, telegram, and telenegro, how important it is to get vaccinated. And the thing that gets me, when you send your kids to school, they have to get all type of shots and vaccinations, okay, to go to school. When I hear people in the military saying they don't think they want to get vaccinated for the COVID, and I'm like, by you being in service and going across the world to fight wars on our behalf, you're getting all type of vaccinations.
So you make the argument.
I just want to say this. But I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, go ahead. I'll let you finish, and then I want to bring Beth Tedesse in here.
Okay. I'm just saying that African Americans, stop listening to individuals that's telling you not to get vaccinated, okay? You're seeing where your friends and neighbors and family members are dying. You're seeing the same things that I'm seeing on the TV, okay? I've had friends that survived it and did videos of what they went through. And this is real, okay? This is real. So I'm finding out that individuals that's telling others not to get vaccinated, then you find out that they're vaccinated.
So, Beth, tell us, what is the Chicago Department of Health doing to respond to vaccine hesitancy, especially as it prepares to roll this vaccine out to children?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We're actually really excited because there's a lot of different options. For us from the health department, we're really leveraging all of Chicago and what it has to offer to make sure that young people and kids can get vaccinated. So one, we're working with healthcare providers, pediatricians, to make sure that their offices will be equipped with enough vaccine supply, and making sure that parents are aware that they can go there for vaccine. We've outreached to pharmacies. We're aware that Mariano's, Walgreens, CVS, Walmart pharmacies will make pediatric doses available. We also just issued a joint press release with CPS. We're all on one accord. They will be making vaccines available in schools as well. And then from the health department, we'll be sponsoring weekend clinics to the city colleges throughout Chicago. In many of the neighborhoods that do have really low vaccine uptake, like Inglewood, we'll be at Kennedy King College in November, making sure that there's vaccine available. We'll be at Olive Harvey College on the far south side. So for us, it's really making sure that we're leveraging all the different partners that we have in Chicago to get vaccine to our young people. We also have a Protect Chicago at Home program, where it's almost like food delivery. We literally will bring vaccine into your home and make sure that you can get vaccinated in the comfort of that place. And it's been wildly successful.
And so all of that said, you know, for parents who are then looking to get their children vaccinated, what can they expect as this moves forward in about, 45 seconds?
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty soon here, once we do get the okay from like ACIP and the different advisory councils that it is safe, we've already pre-positioned vaccine to make sure that it's available in pediatric offices. We'll then start greenlighting our plan. So starting November 13th is when we kick off our city colleges. So we'll have bigger family-focused clinics so that anywhere from grandma to dad, anyone can get a COVID vaccine at these clinics. And there'll also be a marketing campaign as well.
Okay, so folks just need to keep their eyes open. We're out of time, but thanks so much to Dr. Whitney Lynn, Beth Tedesse, and Gator Bradley for joining us. And up next, a Chicago nonprofit donating nearly $1 million to local artists. One of the awardees shares her passion for music. Dozens of Chicago artists are receiving a total of nearly $1 million in cash grants from the Chicago-based nonprofit 3 Arts. The organization, which supports local artists of color and disabled artists, will award 10 people with $30,000. This year, 8 of those artists are Black. One of those recipients is violinist Caitlin Edwards.
My name is Caitlin Edwards, and I play the violin. I started playing the violin when I was 8 years old in the 3rd grade. My 3rd grade teacher called my household and talked about this free group string class that was sponsored by the Music Opportunity Program in Birmingham, Alabama, going to different elementary schools and offering these free group lessons. And I was like, yes, of course I'd love to get out of math class and go learn how to play the violin. And I fell in love with it. I love the tone of the instrument. I love how when it's placed on my shoulder, it's close to my heart. So I feel like I can truly just sing through my instrument and express, whatever I'm going through, however I feel. I'm classically trained through and through, but my music, gospel music, neo-soul, R&B, hip-hop, Black music, that's part of my culture, that's part of who I am as a musician. So when I go to these spaces, I try to bring all of myself to these spaces, fusing those genres together and truly being, who I am as a musician.
And Caitlin tells us she hopes to use some of the $30,000 to create a mentorship program to support young musicians. She also just released her first solo album titled Exhale. Though Chicagoans have plenty of options for getting around the city, one option in particular isn't offered in equal measure to all of Chicago's communities: bike infrastructure. Residents in predominantly Black neighborhoods are less likely to have protected bike lanes, leaving cyclists with the choice of riding on dangerously fast-moving streets or illegally on the sidewalk, increasing their risk of getting a police citation. And research shows cyclists in majority Black neighborhoods are 8 times as likely to receive a ticket for riding on the sidewalk than their counterparts in majority white neighborhoods. Here, mobility equity activist Olatunji Obai-Reed gives the last word on how he says improving transportation infrastructure can transform communities.
My name is Olatunji Obai-Reed, and I am the founding president and CEO of the Equiticity Racial Equity Movement. We are operationalizing racial equity here in Chicago and cities across the country through research, advocacy, programs, and community mobility rituals to improve the lives of Black, brown, and indigenous people in our society. Our work is explicitly designed to have an impact on reducing violence. This building, this space, represents our vision for what we call the Go Hub, a community mobility center where we bring together both hardware and software. Think about it like a computer. When did computers exponentially become more powerful? When they brought the hardware and the software together. The hardware represents all of the physical infrastructure and the physical mobility devices one needs to grow their mobility. It includes things like the streetscape, the train station, bus stops. Perhaps we need better lighting at the train station. Perhaps we need increased barrier-protected bicycle infrastructure. Perhaps we need brighter paint on the intersection. The software includes our community mobility rituals, community bicycle rides, neighborhood walking tours, public transit excursions, open street events. And those community mobility rituals happen with a rhythmic frequency. So you know how at a party, eventually everybody's nodding their head to the same beat and everybody's going at the same rhythm. When we're engaging people in our community mobility rituals and they happen with a rhythmic frequency, people begin to sort of in essence, head nodding to the rhythm because they're coming out on this regular rhythm. And when that happens, people begin to know each other. That creates social bonds, social relationships. And when that happens, trust goes up in the neighborhood. I am confident when hardware and software comes together, where there's a physical space where they meet in the middle, we will have an impact on reducing violence right here at this intersection and potentially throughout the neighborhood of North Lawndale on the west side of Chicago.
And you can find a link to that research titled Biking While Black, How Planning Contributes to Unjust Policing on our website, as well as more from the Last Word series. And that is our show for this weekend. If you're watching us on Saturday night, know that you can also catch Black Voices and Latino Voices on Sundays beginning at 10 p.m. And join me and Paris Schutz next week at 7 on Chicago Tonight. And we leave you tonight with more from violinist and 3 Arts Award recipient Caitlin Edwards. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for sharing part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.